All right. It's another episode of Write Once, Read Many. This time we're covering chapter 21.4. Hey, Vale. All right. I think it's far enough in. I'll just say the audience participation reminder is discuss the teen angst. And this time I actually, it took me like over an hour, but I figured out a question before the stream started for today's question. It's a shock. But, anyway, as a reminder, this arc 21, is called Imago, and that's also the name of the song that's playing. It's quite long compared to the previous opening, but that's all right. Just leave it at a nice low simmer volume. So, for the chapter themes today, yet again, everything is about Taylor thinking about the future, etc. And, considering possibilities, whatever. And I guess another theme is like adjusting to her now permanent lack of civilian identity. Yeah. Don't have much more than that to say though, so I guess just going ahead and dipping into the chapter. It starts off with Taylor thinking about how she's finally looking to the future. She's been too focused on the present moment, even before she got her powers, when she was just being bullied at school, or like possibly even back to when her mom died. And there's the final art. I think this one looks great. It's of the start of the chapter right now when she is walking to the meeting with Citrine and Gru. Anyway, though, so she's sort of attributing this line of thinking about the future to Tag. I think she hopefully would have done it anyway, but maybe it really does come down to Tag saying that one sentence to her. I don't know. And the language around thinking like X many years in the future will be, X, Y, and Z will happen, or where will we be in X many years in the future? And she was thinking about this in, like, Tag said a line about it in 21.1, but she was also thinking about it a lot in 21.3 when she was thinking about Aisha and Alec, and where they'll be a few years down the line. Vale says, "This art is amazing. You can't even see a hint of the swarm of spiders, bees, and roaches. Nicely done." Yeah, she really hid all the bees right under the surface. Those shopping bags just densely packed with as many bees as you could possibly fit in there without giving her hand away. Giving up the game. Anyway, So, yeah, she self-describes what she's wearing, which you can see here. It's like a sundress and a hat, and she makes sure that the she makes sure that she looks like a tourist by looking out of place specifically. She's not wearing her glasses. She has like contacts on. Um, I think it's a pretty good disguise. She's just like, what looks like not me. Um, and she's got these shopping bags for the and a shoebox and whatever for the disguise. She's going along, and she's being kind of shady with the way that she's like looking slash not looking at everyone as they go. She thinks if she gets caught, it'd be based on her darting eyes. She gets some cat calls, but nothing special. She's just like, they'll cat call goddamn anybody. And she's sort of observing as she goes. You can see in the image like how destroyed the city streets are and stuff. She's talking about how she says blood still mark the streets here and there, and how there's gunfire, laser blasts, all sorts. Oh, hey, we got Alien Cat Daddy CGS here. Hey. But yeah, there's just like all the various destruction that you see here in the artwork of like partially destroyed walls, streets, and sidewalks. And it's all post flooding too, so I imagine that's part of like the kind of muddy look to everything as well. And then she's still keeping track of her surroundings with bugs all the time. Very, very uh, paranoid and on edge, thinking that an attack is going to come at any moment. And she's like, well, it's justified because of these various capes' reasons and what they could be doing to me. But on the other hand, this is why all the capes go crazy. Oh, it's Greg. Heyo. So, she sort of hops inside a construction site, trying to keep it low key, and inside that's where Gru and Citrine are, and they're both fully in costume. We know what Gru looks like. As a slight reminder, Citrine wears a yellow evening gown and like a gemstone embroidered mask, etc. And there's this weird moment where Taylor's like, she was hot, so I should be jealous, but I wasn't jealous, and I felt bad about not being jealous. And it's a little bit of a strange thought process, but okay, Taylor. Taylor is a big weirdo, so it's very believable. I think that simultaneously she doesn't need to be jealous and she shouldn't feel bad for not being. um so uh it's kind of funny because like Gru says she looks nice and then she tries not to smile and she smiles anyway and she's kind of like, damn it, I can't believe that I looked human in front of Citrine. It's just kind of typical Taylor. But also, she is smiling. That's a good sign. Think of how few times she smiled total in the book. Probably like once per arc or less. And usually she only smiles when she hurts people. So this is a really good reason for her to be. Anyway, I'll stop making fun of Taylor for a second. Anyway, so they sort of start talking about the meeting, and Taylor starts recording it with a tape recorder. They go outside onto the roof, and they sort of look across the way. Apparently it's sunny and windy right now, but yeah, they look, and there is this big construction that's being erected around where the portal is, and so that sort of frames the meeting that they've got portals on the mind. And they all understand how important it is, how it's sort of the key to the city's future success. Again, the future. Then Citrine announces that Accord is going to be recruiting 5 new capes. There's a bit of a back and forth of asking who they are that leads to the admission that they've got people who are going to be taking cauldron vials who are already working for Accord. So he both knows them deeply and also does not know what their powers are about to be. Or how many of them will turn into big echidnas. Maybe 5 echidnas. I'm a kitten. I don't think that would happen. They're more likely to turn into like a pile of sludge that can't move around, or I don't know, a tentacle monster that zoinks around by moving its tentacles real fast, or some sort of metal boy. These are the types of things people normally turn into. Totally standard bodies. So, getting past them being like, do you know about Cauldron? And her being like, I don't know about Cauldron. And them being like, does Accord know about Cauldron? And then her being like, I don't know if Accord knows. Are you gonna ask him? Is practically what she says. So, then, Taylor's all like, why would anybody take a cauldron vial when they're already living a successful life or whatever? And then, Citrine lays out her idea of the world. Power! I feel like her and Jafar would actually get along really well. Like she would hear unlimited cosmic power and go, yeah, unlimited cosmic power. Or whatever he says. I'm always worried that I'm doing the classic quotes wrong, and I'm sure I am half the time. So, feel free to correct in the chat. But she explains her theory of the case that essentially most people don't have a lot of social or economic mobility in life, and by having the power to affect change in the world, you can actually move your station. And she's like, it's a journey. And Taylor's like, a journey to where? And she's like, a journey doesn't have to have a destination. Clearly Taylor has never heard the saying, it's about the journey, not the destination. It's a very common phrase, Taylor. You should read a book once in a while. And then Gru tries to ask about Citrine's background a little bit, and she's coy and says that maybe Tattletale will tell them. She keeps implying that Tattletale has more knowledge power than she does, which, I can't tell if she kind of doesn't know exactly, or if she's intentionally joking about overestimating Tattletale's power. I'm not quite sure, but either way, she's also surprised that Tattletale didn't tell them her power, and then she tells us her power since Accord told her to disclose any information requested, and it's pretty interesting. She sort of has a field where she changes factors in the world of gravity, friction, light intensity, they say progression of time, and it can interact with most powers. And so she says she can more or less neutralize someone's power or their immunity to their own power. Like maybe, for example, Sundancer would fry because she would turn off the power or the heat normalization that happens around Sundancer's body. So that's the kind of thing I imagine her power doing. Or like turning off Legend's immunity to zapping himself with his own lasers or something. I don't know. I'm sure there's tons of possibilities that I ain't never considered. Maybe she could turn his healing power against him, and like instead of him like sort of becoming light and then becoming whole, Legend would be like scattered and killed that way. I don't know. So she sounds like the type who can actually take out a lot of capes who are normally unkillable. Taylor thinks about like the power possibilities a little bit. And then they mention Othello's power. Like I said in the previous chapter, he can sort of have this alternate version of himself that is in this alternate world, and it can push out and then he pushes back in. It's weird because this actually reminds me strongly of like one of the main, like the core cast of Ward. How there's a sort of like one shunts in and the other shunts out kind of thing going on. So Othello has like a more directed version of that. And then they're sort of discussing they think that aside from the regular amount of no one knows what'll be on the other side of a trigger event, that more or less the other 5 capes are supposed to come out at the same like vial power level, cauldron vial power level as Citrine and Othello. So they'll be in the same ballpark. Because again, Citrine's power, very good, very powerful. People are impressed. And then Taylor sort of social deductions that maybe the reason Accord doesn't want to meet up in person is because he thinks Tattletale will be there and try and suss out details about Cauldron. So hopefully they won't be meeting in person anymore. So this is actually like to their benefit that they had to a certain degree, disclose that they're using Cauldron vials, because it means that hopefully Accord will just be a background player. They talk about how Tattletale is going to vet them, like probably check out their powers in the same way that she did with Gru's power, because like, she's the only reason we knew that it would block out radiation, etc. And then they sort of talk about their standard deal with Accord, what they've got going on, and then they offer to do the teeth, like clearing them out of the city as a joint operation, which Citrine more or less agrees to. And then, which obviously she'll have to go back to Accord, but they talk about the world ending in 2 years and using the portal as a means of escape, using it even if the world doesn't end as a way to attract people who would want to study the other side of the portal. All sorts of like simmering ideas on how to improve the city, how to make it a real hot spot for important people, etc. And then Citrine asks about like if the ambassadors, if she sees them being part of the future, Skitter's wanting to say yes, but it says it depends on Accord. And Citrine says some stuff that sounds shady and problematic about how Accord's not stable in the sense that she means, and I mean, I I think that we have a lot of, knowledge from the two other chapters we've seen him in, the Kraus chapter and the Accord himself chapter, to be like, yeah, this guy is a ticking time bomb. He's not good to have around, really. But she's like, I'll try. So they're trying to push forward with the ambassadors, and then Citrine hands over a gigantic document. They say it's 300 pages, and it's like a bound book and stuff. And it's this plan for the future of Brockton Bay. And according to Taylor skimming it, it's not full of like, first you kill these 8 people and then X, Y, and Z. No, it's just like very like reasonable seeming plans to move forward, and it says it's written in simple and clear language. So like it's this very they've told us before, his power gets more powerful the bigger scale project it is. So it's probably a decently well put together thing, given that it's like the future of a whole major city. But of course, he can't really account for all the factors because, powers. Citrine's like, nobody ever accepts the proposals, and then Skitter's trying to be all like, no, we're really gonna read it, and maybe Tattletale could debate points with Accord, and then Citrine just gives her a look. It's like, are you stupid? What, you want Tattletale to talk to Accord and to debate with him? She doesn't say any of this, but it's pretty clear to me. It's like, you really think that's a good idea, you fool? You should never put Tattletale and Accord in the same room. Anyway, Citrine takes her leave. Then it's just Brian and Taylor on the rooftop. He's in his Gru costume, and she's all alternate tailored out. They sort of stare at the tower around the portal. Gru is wistful about the future, and Taylor's like, look, stuff might get bad, but there will definitely be a future. She's like more optimistic than Brian is. He's asking if she thinks they can bring stability to Brockton Bay, with Accord's plans, and she's worried about the plan because she sort of has this like intuition that I think is right, that it's like all of the powers turn to violence no matter how mundane they seem. They always go crazy. So like doing this plan, we just need to be careful. Because, like, what if Document was evil? And she's not wrong. Greg says, it could be funny. Tattletale's well equipped to be maximally annoying without tipping Accord over the edge into murder. It could be funny. There are some funny scenes with the two of them. There will be at least one additional scene that is funny because she's intentionally being terrible to him. And he deserves it. Without pushing him over the edge. Let's see here. Yeah, she wants to sort of navigate the future and use like soft pressure to get things headed in the right direction, and when they gotta get their hands dirty in the streets, they'll do that too, but she wants to have an actual like safe city for people to live in, not just rule over a hovel, a concrete hovel, as some listeners would say. And Gru asks about them sort of in the future. Or no, actually, I had it backwards. It's Taylor is talking about trying to think about the future of the team and stuff, and the direction they'll go, and how they'll like maintain their safety and whatever. Gru says there's time to figure it out, and she's like, "We got to solidify things quickly so that uh, so that things won't ramp up on us, basically." And she talks about all kinds of different types of enemies they fought, merchants, ABB, the Slaughterhouse Nine, and the Teeth are all mentioned, and it's like they're all coming from different directions. They all have different kinds of momentum and staying power, and they need to kind of have their bases covered in a way so that they're not attracting attention, but that they're like scary enough to fend off the small fries, but like they're not offending the heroes. It's like a whole like multi-threaded tightrope walk where they got to balance their weight on all these different areas so that they don't all snap at once. Um, some sort of spider web, probably. Maybe that imagery should be put out there by me now. But I just didn't think about it until right then. Um, so it's a tangled web that they weave, some would say. And she goes into the motivations a bit of the other villains, whether they're like, just crazy, or like they got the warped sensibilities, is how she described like the Slaughterhouse Nine. Or whether they see the Undersiders as weak for one reason or another and think that they can move in on them like the Teeth. Gru's like asking her if she'll be able to manage all this. And she doesn't answer directly. She instead starts to say that she wants him to be ready to. Well, she's asking him if he will be ready if he has to take over. But she's kind of telling him, you need to be ready. So she's asking and telling at the same time. The telling is all subtextual and the asking is all textual. But she says there's no one else who can do it. She doesn't want the team to be subsumed by the ambassadors or anything. And when Gru sort of is batting that possibility away, she kind of is saying that it's not about just the ambassadors. It's about if he'll be ready, because they can't pretend like they don't have this like violent lifestyle where people get killed all the time. And then she talks about how she re-brings up the idea of him going to therapy, and then says maybe she should get therapy too. I wonder. The story also wonders. But she gets him to agree. He says he'd be willing to try therapy, and she says that she's been feeling the loss of her like civilian Taylor persona. And so she thinks about how easy it could be. She doesn't say for her to die, but she says for the other half of her life to disappear. For her to die. And then she brings up Regent and Imp. Remember, she had thought to herself in 21.3 how she had to talk to Gru about Regent controlling Imp. Well, she brings it up, and at first she's saying they're together, and he says that he knows. And then when it seems like he's maybe not taking it as seriously as she wants, or not willing to approach it because of the way that Regent is and the like weird toxic spiral he'll have, and the way that Imp will run away from the situation. So he's afraid on multiple fronts, and then she kind of tells him the main thing that she was worried about telling him. He controlled her. And then, this is ominous news, and she brings up that they might not be romantic yet, but that they probably still will be, and that they have like a weird toxic dynamic already because of the whole mutually assured destruction control thing. And then that fast wind from earlier has rolled some clouds in, and the clouds have, brought a thunderstorm with them, so rain's pouring down on them. And I had talked about like the light and dark imagery a lot, and in one of the earlier chapters, I think maybe at the 21.1 when I was talking about the first image. That we got for the chapter arts, but I don't know, it's hard to remember exactly everything I say, but whenever I talked about it, this is kind of what I was meaning to, where like this chapter, there's like whole chapters that are light and whole chapters that are dark, and then like this one marks where it's like splitting, where it starts out sunny and it gets rainy, and it's just this constantly vacillating imagery. There will be one where it starts with really bad rain and then like ends at night, and then Taylor's in like a room where there's like heavy illumination, and then like completely lights off. It just keeps going back and forth. Anyway, so the storm's coming in. We get they go inside. She tries to take off her glasses to wipe them down, and she's like, "Wow, I'm not even wearing glasses. I'm wearing the maskless mask of a different outfit." She apologizes to Brian for being a downer, and he's like, "Look, it's that I keep thinking about our future, like me, you, us," and then asks all these questions about if they have kids or get married or what, and then she has this moment of time where she's thinking about all these like thoughts, and she thinks about, I mean, it's just like one paragraph, but it's about kind of how great their life is in this future she imagines, and she really wants it. She says, "Yes," I thought. "Yes, please, yes." And then she doesn't say any of it, and then Brian says, "Me either," after she doesn't respond, and it's like, ooh, it's rough. And yeah, so she never reaches out to him with that, and like again, like medium spoilers as always, like I don't think she ever says this. She never. It's just kind of Taylor hits you in the feelings sometimes. Anyway, the unvoiced is left unvoiced, and he says that he should have kept his mouth shut. She says no, but that's all she says, and then they sort of she steps in close, takes his hands, and then she moves the bugs out of the way first. Trust me, guys, she's not just squishing bugs between her body and his. That'd be gross. She's crawling them out of the way first. And then they sort of have a moment. She's taken his helmet/mask off, and she cranes her neck up to him because even though she's tall for a girl, he's way taller than her, an unknowable amount taller, because Taylor's so bad at estimating height. And then he's like, or she says, "There's no regrets about us together," and when he says no, then he says, "No, it was right." And then she says that basically she wants to hook up one last. And then that's the end of the chapter, is that they hook up. As always, it just cuts to black. It doesn't stay. It does not zoom in or focus on this scene. So yeah, and it's always at a chapter end so that we can get out of there, so that Wildbow can bail before anything happens. Pretty interesting chapter. It's one of those talky chapters, thinky talky. And they talk about the state of the city and stuff, but there's a lot less like lore and a lot more just like interpersonal. It's a very character heavy chapter. What to say? Final chapter thoughts. It's pretty good. I don't have as much to say as I wish I had to say about this chapter, but I don't even know. No, nothing after the but. As far as arc stuff, this is the middle chapter in the arc, of course, and this one as well as the next one feel like kind of a pivot point. In terms of we're being drip fed. I guess it's not even a pivot point. It's just like we're being slowly drip fed more and more of like Taylor's thinking of the future. But what about the future? What's her plan? And we get more and more, but it isn't resolved for us until like the end of the last chapter in the arc. So, it's kind of a weird, awkward section to talk about without talking about the whole arc, just because I don't want to, like, medium spoilers aside, I don't want to just, like, say, this is what she does 3 chapters from now. If somebody's reading along, that's a bit much on them, so. That Taylor, always thinking around her problems and intentionally not thinking what she's going to do so that the audience is left in suspense. Oh, that's the other theme, compartmentalization. Moving on to the characters section. They talk about other characters in this chapter. So the ones who are mentioned are like Accord. We obviously know he's a big weirdo, and Taylor's not sure if her group will be able to work with their group, but is hoping if Accord is like not physically present at meetings, that hopefully things will smooth over. I think she might be right. From the standpoint of like, if I only knew this up to this point in the story, like, yeah, I think if they just never talk to Accord directly and only go through Citrine and Othello, they'll probably be fine. And then they mention Othello. We don't really know that much about him, but the few glances we get at him, he seems like a put together guy, and we see that he was probably like these trainees, the 5 people who are going to get powers, in that he was probably one of these sort of best of the best already, and then was given powers after the fact. Because we know he's a Cauldron Cape. Citrine, because of future flashbacks, we know her background more, but I'm just not going to talk about it here. But she's a bit less refined, I think, than the standard fare for Accord. Vale says, compartmentalization, just like she does with her bugs in the shopping bags. Exactly, just puts them in all the little shopping compartments. Let's see here. So what was I thinking about characters? We get the Imp and Aisha mentions and their sort of beginnings of a twisted love story. And then, Gru's reaction to that. And I guess I'll just quickly touch on Citrine. We see that she's fine with being cryptic, but she's pretty no nonsense overall. She's not gonna she'll just say that she's not saying a thing, and she's fine with that. Um, she's pretty straightforward, even if she's not entirely, helpful. She's not frustrating. They deal with so many frustrating people in this story. Anyway, so yes, Citrine, pretty competent. And then into the heart of the matter, the two important characters, Brian and Taylor. Brian, he's feeling like it certainly seems like he feels on unstable ground. He really wants Taylor to slow down. He doesn't know exactly what she's doing and thinks she's kind of spiraling. I don't know if he I just take him at face value when he says that he doesn't see a future for them in the same way that Taylor does see the future for them. I mean, he thinks he's matching her, but he's not. But it feels very genuine, and I don't think that he's in the way that she's lying by omission to sort of further the direction she's going with her idea. He's not. I think that he's being very genuine about his feelings about not being able to imagine a future for them, which is very sad. And again, one of the things, when I think back on the story, this is one of those tragic moments when she doesn't tell him her feelings, because even if she doesn't feel like she can pursue them, for him to never know that she felt this way is pretty I don't it hits me in the core. She has done critical damage to me. But anyway, then talking about Taylor a bit, she's making moves, wheeling and dealing, considering plans. I really like in this chapter how she feels out of place in this alternate costume version of her civilian self, and she feels more weird about just kind of being dressed up normal, but in a different style from her own, than being dressed up as a bug lady who runs around and cuts people with a knife. It just kind of tells you where her priorities lie. She's I'm just much more comfortable being a weird bug. And she has made her bug costume look increasingly more bug over the last while, because she talks about how she's got the sharper clawed hands and stuff, and more mandibled face. Maybe she was sick and tired of people like Burnscar calling her the alien girl. But yeah, it's really interesting, and I don't always know exactly. I can't always pull through exactly what is meant by all the costuming stuff, but I obviously understand that the costuming of the characters is done with a lot of intentionality. Wildbow, maybe he thinks clothes are important always, but within this story they are definitely important. And then the fact that they're superheroes or supervillains or whatever, the costumes are important for their both in universe and in story performative nature, I guess. So that's why I try and think about that a lot. I mean, this outfit that she says she'd never wear is only slightly more feminine / touristy than the kind of stuff she was wearing at the end of the summer anyway. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that out of the ballpark anymore, compared to if she had done this in the arc 2, it would have been bananas. But at this point, like, I'm less surprised that she's wearing this dress than she is. But it is hard for her to self-assess. She has a really, really hard time looking at herself. So, metaphorically looking at herself. She doesn't seem to have a problem looking in the mirror. Anyway, moving on past those characters and their great character growth and their lies of omission and all these sorts of things. We got the powers, knowledge, and world building. Oh, Vale said something. I would never wear this, while wearing this is on point for Taylor, who never tells us the truth. Yeah, she kind of does lie to herself a lot, and by extension us, because we're supposed to be seeing her thoughts. Yeah, one of those self-liars. So I just pulled out the two big quotes where they say exactly what the powers do for Citrine and Othello, because I thought it was worth reading, even though I described it already. I attune areas to particular functions. More gravity, less gravity, more intense temperature variation, less intense temperature variation, friction, light intensity, the progression of time, more possibilities than I can count, many so minor you wouldn't notice. But if someone powered is in the area, and I find the right attunement, as though I were searching a radio station, I can cut off their powers. If I'm exact enough, which never takes more than 20 or 30 seconds to narrow down, I can use my power to cancel out the filters that keep someone's powers in their control. I can also remove the filters that keep their power from affecting them. Damn! That's pretty powerful. And then, describing Othello, he has a mirror self who walks in a world very similar to this one. This self has a limited ability to affect our world, and can't be affected by us. Othello can push himself into that other world to bring his other self into ours, and vice versa. One leaves, the other enters. It looks very much like teleportation or invisibility. It isn't. Vale says, Taylor told the truth once in Arc 2, though, just to keep readers on their toes. Yeah. So yeah, very cool powers. The Ambassador's powers, pretty neat. The other world building is, of course, the state of the city, the stuff we see here in the image, as well as the building they're erecting around the Scar, which is the sort of time stop bubble that was left by one of the Bakuda bombs during the Leviathan fight, that has Dauntless as well as two of the like villain white supremacist capes inside. Jotun or Jotun, I forget which is the thing, as well as Alabaster are the two who are trapped in there, and they're all sort of like mid being thrown back, but in time stops, so they just aren't progressing to the point where they hit whatever they would hit. And so they have they've covered that up as best they can, is what they're starting to do. And then they've also built a building around the portal, and then there's also the lake that Leviathan had created during part of the fight when he sunk that one part of the city, which borders Parian's territory. It's where the secret meeting in Arc 11 was, etc. That lake is still just something they don't know what to do with as a city. They can't really use it. Like, there's problems with even trying to use it as like a lake because there's so much debris and like buildings poking out of the water and stuff. All kinds of trouble. So the state of the city is like recovering, but still kind of bad, actually. I'm sure that the water imagery of the rain has stuff going on. The storm clouds of their emotions, maybe. But But, it's just like when we're discussing so much post-Leviathan and like direct Leviathan fight stuff, and then it goes from like a warm, windy, sunny day to like a rainy day. There's got to be something there. I'm not a literary analyst. I'm just a guy who goes, look at that. That's probably something, right? And maybe someday I'll get there. But this is mostly all I have. We're going to go to the audience participation. Sorry that this episode's been a bit light overall. I realized today that I've just been really overwhelmed with how dense these chapters get, because I kind of feel like the dialogue and the thought process is always like doing so much. Despite how many words there are, it's still economical writing kind of thing. So it's been like, it's been a mess. Anyway, so Vale says, sorry, I didn't know what to do with the audience participation this week, so I slacked. Yeah, it was a pretty weak sauce question. Discuss the teen angst. I mean, there is a lot of it going on between Taylor and Brian, but the answers we did get, Halloween said, what's that one again? The chapter where she leaves? And then I think it's the Gru chapter, though I could be wrong. And then Alec gets mentioned in that chapter. So the teen angst is us thinking about Alec getting mentioned in a chapter. That's the lesson I've learned. My discussion of the teen angst is that it hurt my feelings. So good job, book. You hurt my feelings. Also, how dare you? I think it's pretty good. I think as far as teen writing and teen angst goes, Wildbow has improved by a ridiculous amount from the start of the work to now. And it will only continue to grow stronger over time as he, keeps writing book to book more angsty teens. And I love it. I think that's maybe his strongest suits are breadcrumb storytelling style, inventive powers and worlds, and then angsty teen writing. I think these are his three strongest things. Yeah, I guess I was just putting world building and like the cool powers, because like world building can mean lots of things, but like I think that no, you're right, because it's like there's always like especially with the parahuman setting, like stuff is so tied together so perfectly. Yeah, we'll replace the powers thing with world building. So world building / settings. And you say character interaction. And that's my version of angsty teens. I know they're not all teens, but the majority of the characters are teens, and most of the really good ones are as well. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going in circles. The Vale says, again, that is my thought. Just sharing, not saying I'm right. No, I mean, I think you're right, too. I know it's just your thought, but I also agree with you after you said it, so. Well, I'm going to start that old outro music, and hell, I'm gonna do the we're gonna rewatch the speed draw as well, and we'll start the music off quiet like. Vale saying, "Take care, thanks as always." Thank you, Val. And thank you, Greg and Alien, for being here as well. So And Greg says his customary cheers. Cheers. As it has been for the past few weeks, this song that we're hearing now is Imago by ScarlettXOX. You can find her work at twitch.tv/Scarlett_Rogue. Our Discord server link can be found in the stream description as well as the channel description. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free at parahumans.wordpress.com, and there is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. Alien said something at the end. No problem. Always enjoy it. Thank you. It's nice to know. Not a big audience for this show. But, let's see here. I also wanted to shout out the other podcast that I'm always forgetting. Let me go ahead and, the one good thing about this long intro-outro song is that, like, I can bullshit for, 4 minutes over the ending. So it's, yes. Worm, an unabridged production by Abaddon Productions. It is, just a different audiobook that is also front to back, whole story. And then there is the full cast audiobook, which is currently still on Arc 4, and working on Arc 5. And that is Migration Broadcasting. So, yes. Oh, and you know what? Let's give a shout out to some other podcasts. I haven't listened to them in a while at this point, but We've Got Worm and We've Got Ward, of course, seminal, important podcasts in this space, and then Decomposing Worm from the same group, but two different people from Doof Media, reviewing Worm in broader strokes, and I thought that Decomposing Worm was quite good. Anyway, vocal outro over, music only time.